think that the time frame that everyone is talking about is 10 years because we look at other disasters. Take, for example, the recent tsunami in Asia over Christmas of 2004 into the new year then. So that's been 5 years, and a lot of good work has been done, but there is still work to be completed. But for example, in the terrible impact of the tsunami in Indonesia, it didn't affect the government of Indonesia. So the government of Indonesia and most of the country was unaffected. What happened here was so much more devastating because it just wiped out government buildings, records, public services from schools and hospitals and police stations. The penitentiary, was unfortunately damaged, and therefore all the criminals got out. So I think most experts believe that we're talking about on the low end a 5-year, on the upper end a 10-year of sustained commitment, and then hopefully we will have put the Haitian people on a strong foundation. One other example I would use is think about the terrible genocide in Rwanda. Yet now, about 15 years later, Rwanda is recovering. I mean, they lost 800,000 people. It was the worst kind of terrible evil. And yet now their economy is growing because they had a plan, and the international community stood with them while they implemented that plan.
Well, you speak of that, and Haiti is a whole different, in a whole different boat than many of these other countries, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. I went there, and I saw beauty in poverty because people learned to survive, and now they're trying to reorganize that survival and change how they lived before. And that brings me to something that I found out this week. I talked to Mayor Ray Nagin of New Orleans, and he said his city 5 years in still has a lot of problems. And he says typically it takes a city or a community to rebuild 10 to 15 years. You're talking 10. And New Orleans had buildings that at least met code. They had certain infrastructures that were in place. Haiti doesn't. So do you realistically think 10 years or maybe even beyond? And if so, it's going to go beyond the billions and billions and maybe into trillions, correct?
I don't think so, and here's why. I think every disaster is different. There's no doubt that what has happened to Haiti is extraordinarily damaging. If we do this right, though, the countryside was largely unaffected. If we can get economic activity going in the countryside, the farmers able to, once again plant and harvest and have markets for their food, there is an opportunity here which is unique because Haiti has been studied to death. Everybody has an opinion about what needs to be done in Haiti. The problem has been there's never been the political will matched with the resources and the pressure to follow through as there is now. So that's why 10 years is a time when we will be able to assess how much has happened. Of course, there will continue to be problems and challenges beyond that, but Haiti had those before the earthquake. And part of what we have to do here is to create a different mindset among Haitians themselves. The people in the establishment in Haiti have to understand that their country and their fellow men and women can do better if they are more generous and share the results of success. The people out in the country have to grasp education as a true vehicle for personal achievement. So there's a lot to be done, but I'm always struck by how when Haitians leave their country, come to the U.S. or Canada or France, they are very successful. They're doctors and nurses and teachers and business leaders, and there's no reason that they can't see that success back in Haiti if we get the attitudes of people to match the development agenda.
You talked about the countryside. Let's go beyond Port-au-Prince. What's happening now to help those who are beyond the Port-au-Prince borders, who are affected right now? We know that roads are still impassable, but what is this administration doing to help those?
Well, actually, we are helicoptering in food, water, supplies into areas where there has been an increase in population because people are leaving Port-au-Prince. experts, including the Prime Minister Bellarive today, said that this is an opportunity that should not be missed. Port-au-Prince got too big for the size of Haiti, in part because previous governments did not invest in the countryside. And therefore, if we can reverse some of that in-migration to Port-au-Prince, and as people are leaving Port-au-Prince to go back to their family homes, if we can provide opportunity back there, then we'll have a better chance to develop Port-au-Prince in a more thoughtful way.
Well, let's talk about migration. You've heard the calls. There, many people, to include the NAACP, CDC, they're looking for an extension into the temporary status, protective status for many that are here for 18 months, and they're saying it may need to happen beyond. What are your thoughts?
I certainly think we have to stay open to that. I think that the immediate need to provide temporary protected status to the people who are here without documentation was necessary, and the Obama administration did it. But we have to watch this carefully. You cannot return people until there's some sense of stability and security and opportunity. And I don't think 18 months is a magic number, so we're going to have to evaluate this as we go forward.
And also, Congresswoman Maxine Waters wants the United States to forgive or help, get the help from the United States to forgive the debt to the IMF, the World Bank. Is that something that's feasible, especially now since they need you? They need all your money, all your support.
Absolutely, it's feasible. We're looking at that. We heard presentations today from all three of those two organizations plus the Inter-American Development Bank. They all recognize the need that they face in trying to work through a program for the forgiveness of debt. It's just unrealistic to think that Haiti would ever, in the far foreseeable future, be able to repay that.
And lastly, housing and security. What are you going to do on the ground there, and how is the U.S. really going to get involved with security over time, because that is a major issue, and the housing, trying to house these people as they are rebuilding to a new standard, a new building code standard?
Well, two things. One, as you know, we've sent thousands of our troops, soldiers and Marines, to assist in the delivery of humanitarian supplies, and also to support the UN troops on the ground in providing security. The UN troops have done a good job. The UN mission, led by a Brazilian general, has really made enormous progress in providing law and order, in working on corrections, and many of the other aspects of law enforcement. But they're overwhelmed, and the UN personnel probably will, when it's all said and done, suffer more than 300 losses. So this is a big burden for them to assume. But the Security Council has expanded the number of forces that they can take in both the police training and units of soldiers to support those who are already there. So we're going to work closely with them, because security is paramount, and it has to be in the streets. And as I said, we have all these people who broke out of the penitentiary, so we have, unfortunately, more than our share of dangerous criminals wandering around now that have to be disarmed and subdued and returned to a prison. But we're really committed to working on the immediate needs of shelter and housing. We talked today in our meeting about how we can come up with 200,000 tents so that people will have some shelter. We're racing against the clock because the rainy season starts in a couple of months, and the hurricane season will also return. So we just have to do everything we can, and everyone is committed to that.
And lastly, have you been able to talk to some of these leaders here about what many around the world are saying, this heavy-handedness by the United States in helping? They don't want the military there, a strong military presence. It's almost like you're hearing the same thing with the African Union when there was a concern about bringing AFRICOM there. People don't want the U.S. military there. What are your thoughts about that? And have you talked to these world leaders about that?
Well, I have not only talked with them, I have followed the international press very closely. That's a minority opinion. The much greater majority opinion is that the United States is using its power in a way that everyone can see helps people. We've made it clear we are not there for the long term. This is solely to assist the Haitian government